sticking out your gut for the Rizzler. You're so skibbity, you're so phantom tax.
Welcome. Today I am doing something completely new, and I am going to be doing my very first book review. Without further introduction, I say, let's talk Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Hannah Grace, the author, I've done my research. Our author, Hannah Grace, is an English author who loves her husband and her two dogs, Pig and Bear. She currently has 2 other books out. The first one is titled Icebreaker, which I'll be reviewing shortly, and the second one is Wildfires, which I am currently reading and is right back here behind me. In December of 2024, she's expected to release another book in this series called Daydream. There isn't a whole ton about her online, like you really have to get context clues from her Instagram page, which is super fun and poppy and matches her super cutesy book covers. She did do a post about her top things in 2023, and she said, let me get my trusty iPad that has my notes on it. She said that she likes the Barbie movie, that she's a self-proclaimed 30-year-old teenage girl, which is literally so real. She said that in 2023, she learned how impactful support from others can be and how supporting others is also impactful to her. She learned to protect her peace and that progress does not need to be perfect. And that she really loves her Stanley Cup.
Big dumb cup.
Now, I will give a disclaimer to this book. Although it looks cutesy and fun, and of course you've seen the TikToks about Target selling it in the children's book section, it is not a children's book. It deals with a lot of heavy topics. And although it's cheesy and romantic and really cute at some points, and it talks way too in detail about hockey, which I don't understand at all, it also has a lot of mature content, including that of mentions of abandonment, emotional abuse, physical fighting, stress of OCD, sexual content, anxiety, near-death situations, drowning, alcohol use, blacking out, depression, self-image issues, and eating disorders. Besides those specific triggers, there will obviously be spoilers in this video because I'll be going in depth about this book. With that being said, read and watch this with caution. If any of those topics are topics that you don't particularly enjoy, be aware that I will be talking about them in this video and you'll be reading about them in Icebreaker. With that being said, Mom and Dad, please do not watch this video. One of my favorite hockey series is the Off-Campus and Briar U series. One is the Off-Campus series, and then Briar U is a spin-off series, and they're all by Elle Kennedy, and I thought they were really well written. They were written in like 2013, I want to say. Like the first book came out in 2013. I think they're really fun. I have one of my copies back here, and it's super fun. It's really entertaining if you're into hockey books. I recommend that series. Getting into the Maple Hills series. Our first installation is Icebreaker. This one came out in 2022 in the UK, I believe, and it made its way over to the US market at the beginning of 2023. The series currently has 2 books, Icebreaker and then Wildfires. And then, as I said, we're waiting on a 3rd installation that'll hopefully be out this summer. All around, I thought this book was pretty feel-good. It wasn't meant to make you sit there and read it and have to really think about things. Like, it's a feel-good book. It's fun. It's lighthearted, although there are a lot of heavy topics and you have to be pretty aware of the things that you're reading. I thought it was a pretty fun read. Now, let's get into how I'm doing this video. First, I will be going through our 2 main characters, Nate and Stassie. Or Stacy, or Anastasia, whatever. Nathan and Anastasia. I really liked the 2 main characters. I didn't find them to be unlikable, although I did read a lot of things saying that Anastasia was a really annoying character, but I did not feel that way. I thought she was a very interesting character to follow, and I thought that having their dual POVs was something really fun, and I think that I wouldn't have enjoyed the book the same if I didn't have that dual POV, so I thought it was really interesting to read. So I'll be talking about those 2 characters. Then I'll be getting into every single character that I deem important in this book, because my opinion is the only opinion that matters in this video. After I go through characters that I deem important and helpful for moving the storyline along, I will then go into each individual act of the book. We'll have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, which I went in and found what chapters to me deemed the end of a plot point or the beginning of like a rising action or something, and what I really thought like the main parts of the book were. I do deem a couple of chapters filler chapters, but I don't really think you could get where you are in the book without those chapters. After I go through our acts, I will then talk about the epilogue, because I've also heard mixed reviews about the epilogue, and I have some things to say. After I go through the epilogue, I'll be talking about the romance portion of the book, because I know you guys clicked on this video to hear me talk about the spicy chapters in Icebreaker. I know you did. After I talk about the romance portion, I will then read some reviews. I'll be reading reviews from Goodreads that I found interesting, and then I'll be giving my overall review at the very end of this video. So with that being said, let's get into the rest of this video. Just so you guys know, I do have a little cart right here that I'm reading off of. I have my iPad here where I typed out notes and specific points that I want to talk about. I also have my drinks with me, so if I take a little sip because I'm parched, don't mind it. Starting off, we have our two main characters, Nate and Anastasia, which I already previously mentioned and who are featured on the cover of the book. Stassie is a figure skater at Maple Hills, University of California. She's a junior. She dreams of winning gold for the US at the Olympics. She is super headstrong. She lives with her best friend Lola and a few other figure skaters and people that she's friends with. I really enjoyed her best friend Lola. I thought she was a good best friend. However, Stassie does not do relationships well. She has really bad abandonment issues, so she doesn't really like commitment. Nate is pretty much the exact opposite. Nate is a Maple Hills senior hockey player. He's the captain. He's extremely overprotective of his friends and will go to extreme lengths to defend them. He doesn't really take bullshit. He's the team captain, so he takes a leader position in life and on the hockey rink. My sports knowledge is really coming out today, guys. And I would describe him as a golden retriever character. You hear that in book tropes all the time, but I thought that Nate was a really good example of that. Now, with Icebreaker, when it came out in the US, I was immediately intrigued and I purchased the book. I purchased it because I had watched this show called Spinning Out, which is on Netflix, and I can't remember any of the characters' names, but the main character, who is a figure skater, has some severe PTSD from figure skating. She also has OCD, and I think multiple personalities disorder. I thought it was really interesting watching the show, and if that's something you're interested in looking into, I do recommend, because I thought the show was very, very interesting, and it was a good watch. So Nate and Stassie obviously have to meet at some point in this book, and they get the chance to meet up when somebody trashes the secondary hockey rink at their school. Of course, there are two hockey rinks in their school. One is for the figure skaters and one is for the hockey team. So the fact that the hockey rink is kind of destroyed and has to go under an emergency reconstruction really stirs things up, and it builds a enemies kind of dynamic between Stassie and the entire hockey team because she hates them. Oh no, what's that? Forced proximity? Uh-oh. Getting into the base of the plot, I really enjoyed reading about the characters and seeing their progression throughout the entire book. Seeing how Stassie kind of changed from an uptight skater who basically was just walked all over by everyone, and seeing her build up her own confidence and stand up for herself in those last few chapters of the book was really, really nice. I also enjoyed how Nate stayed overprotective of all of his friends and everyone he cared about throughout the book. I thought that was really nice. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the college-aged kids acting like college-aged kids. They were funny. They messed up. They screwed up. They had anxiety. They went out. They stayed in. They had mood swings. They had homework. They were busy. They were reckless. They had conversations where they would literally say stuff like LOL out in person. This is real. This is real, guys. This is real. These are college kids. I'm in college. I'm a college kid. I mean, I may not say some of the things they say, but like Their language and vernacular is very similar to that of an actual college kid, which is something I really enjoyed. I think another really fun part of this book, which I already mentioned, is the dual perspective chapters. You get Anastasia chapters and Nate chapters, which I really, really enjoyed because they both had extremely different inner dialogue and different opinions. Now I'm going to talk about some tropes before I get into the characters. Some tropes that are in this book is obviously it's a sports romance. It also deals with hockey boy, figure skater girl, grumpy girl, sunshine boy, golden retriever love interest, forced proximity, frenemies to lovers, miscommunication, and boy saves girl. I probably missed a few, but those are all the main ones that it really ties in the plot of the book. Let's get into the characters of the book. So first, we obviously had Nate and Stassie, which we already talked about. Then we have Stassie's best friend, Lola. Lola is Stassie's roommate. She's a theater girl. Love of my life. Love her. She was so funny. She was such a supportive friend, and there was no weird friendship breakup. Our next character that I'm going to talk about is JJ. JJ is honestly one of my favorite characters in this book. I loved JJ. He was a little sweetheart. He's a hockey boy. He lives with Nate. He also loves cooking, and throughout the book, he and Stassie's relationship really grows, and they connect a lot, which I really, really liked. Next character, Henry. Henry's a sophomore, so he's a bit younger than the rest of the kids. He's also a hockey player who lives with everyone. He's pretty quiet and reserved, but he makes a few jokes that make me think there's a little more down there. Henry is getting his book very soon. That third installation we're talking about, Daydream. This is Henry. Very excited. He's pretty much a sweetheart little ladies man. He keeps a quote-unquote box of girl things in his room just in case a girl stays at the house. He's pretty shy, but he's always well prepared, and he's kind of artsy. Next, we have two characters that I put together because honestly, I didn't know they were two separate characters until halfway through the book. Robbie and Bobby, which is really confusing considering Stassie and Anastasia are the same person. One of them is dating Lola and is they turn into mom and dad to Stassie and Nate, which is really cute, and they advise them and talk them down on things, which is really, really nice. One of them is also the assistant hockey coach. One of them is just a kid on the hockey team. And my roommate, who also read the book, said that I was just only describing Robbie and that Bobby is only on the hockey team and he's a super side character. But I figured I would still add him in. For our final character, it's my least favorite, Aaron, or Shitbrains, as I literally typed out on my document. I hate Aaron. I hated him from the start. His very first line is, let me hold up, don't worry guys, I've got this. Okay. Come on, Anastasia, put in some effort for once. Can you shut up? I hated him throughout the entire book. There was no redemption, which I was really happy for. If he got redemption after that one shitty line, I was about to be so upset. But he remains the villain of this book. He's pretty much the antagonist the whole time. Now it's time to talk about the acts of the book. I tried to divide this book into 3 acts, but it was actually surprisingly hard compared to other books that I've read. I feel like Icebreaker is kind of hard to break into parts and pieces because I figured out what the plot was and I was like, yes, I know where this is going. I can see it. And then I read the back of the book I think I read it to chapter 15 probably. And then I read the back of the book, which I'll read it for you now. Ready? Anastasia Allen has worked her entire life for a shot at Team USA. It looks like everything is going according to plan when she gets a full scholarship to University of California, Maple Hills and lands a place on their competitive figure skating team. Nothing will stand in her way, not even the captain of the hockey team, Nate Hawkins. Nate's focus as team captain is on keeping his team on the ice, which is tricky when a facilities mishap means that they're forced to share a rink with the figure skating team, including Anastasia, who clearly can't stand him. But when Anastasia's skating partner faces an uncertain future, she may have to look to Nate to take her shot. sparks fly, but Anastasia isn't worried because she could never like a hockey player, right? Well, that's insane because what uncertain future does her skating partner face? Because I was 15 chapters into the book and there was nothing. There's 50 chapters in this whole book, and I was at chapter 15 thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to Ava? I'm so confused. So, it was really hard for me to divide up acts in this book. We're going to start with Act 1. Act 1 for me is obviously for everyone, not for me. Starts at chapter 1, where you see Stassie's perspective, and she's in this situationship with a guy named Ryan Rothwell. He's a point guard, which I'm pretty sure is basketball. I don't know, guys. I sit in bed and read all day. How am I supposed to know about sports? And he's actually really good friends with Stassie. They have a really good relationship despite the fact that they're technically like friends with benefits and like in a situationship. These Act 1 chapters were the chapters that Nate and Stassie become closer. That's when the whole incident happens of the ice rink gets shut down and the hockey team moves into the figure skater rink. So they were kind of just building like a good little tension there. They were getting closer. Figure skaters are hanging out with the hockey team more because of that forced proximity. I think that for me, Act 1 is chapters 1 through 19. Now, I will give you some of my favorite chapters with that being said. My first favorite chapter is chapter 8, and that is because it was so insane that my roommates and I had to take a lap in chapter 7, the very end, and I wrote, they're cutie! So I knew chapter 8 was going to be good. I thought chapter 8 was really, really cute. I remember it was like a party. I did underline, they wrote, I hate icebreakers, and I underlined that and wrote, title of the book, because I thought it was funny. This might be my favorite line of the chapter. This is, of course, Nate's perspective. Looking at her makes me want to be the funniest guy in the room, so I can be the one to make her laugh, which I thought was so cute. That was so cute. I thought it was super cute. The next chapter that I really, really enjoyed was chapters 11 and 12, but I didn't enjoy, not that I didn't enjoy, I liked the end of chapter 11 and how it led into chapter 12 because it wasn't like a fade to black moment. It continued on this moment from another person's perspective. Chapter 11 is an Anastasia perspective and chapter 12 is a Nathan perspective. The end of chapter 12, they're out partying and it's after Stassie gets injured. It's not a terrible injury, but she should still be watching herself. Nate comes up behind her and says, you shouldn't be drinking, you have a head injury. And then they're really close to one another and really sweet. And then it turns out Nate also has an injury, so they kind of bond over that. And then they get really cute. And then chapter 11 ends with Nate saying, I'm already amazed by you, Anastasia, which was also so sweet. Like, this guy has some of the best lines in the book. Chapter 12, I've written next to Nathan's name, Bookie Bear, because his internal thoughts and internal dialogue is so funny. The next chapter that I have marked is chapter 15. Is fucking crazy. It's actually really funny because 14, Stassie and Nate kind of go into this like little playful flirty thing, and Stassie's like, okay, fine, if you can find me by midnight tonight, we can, well, of course, he goes all around town looking for her, and it turns out she is in his room the whole time. And it's really funny because all of his roommates were in on it, so they were all like pranking him, and they threw a secret party because she was like, oh, they had a party. So he was going out to all of these other parties. It's really funny and cute. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cute little chapter. Now let's get into Act 2. Act 2 for me kind of classifies chapter 20 through 31. This is where the chapters get iffy because I think that 31 through 33 are like fillers, sort of. I will say the inciting incident is in Act 2. Stassie and Nate have to become skating partners, just like the back of the book said. I think that it's really fun to see their like skating partner and teamwork dynamic. I think it's also fun because Stassie lays down a line with Nate and says that since we're skating partners and we're officially unofficial, we should lay down a line and just be skating partners for the time being. No labels, no like romance, none of that. We need to be skating partners because we need to focus on ourselves. So you may be wondering, why are Stassie and Nate skating partners? Nate is a hockey player, Stassie is a figure skater, and where the fuck is Aaron? That's right, I've been avoiding talking about him this entire time because I hate him. Aaron shows up at the end of chapter 19 with a arm sling as though he's broken his arm. And of course, everyone's like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And he turns to Stassie and goes, ask your boyfriend. And we all know he's talking about Nate. What did happen, Aaron? Well, he's claiming that Nate beat him up. Well, that someone on the hockey team beat him up. And obviously, everyone's assuming that it's Nate because who else has an issue with Aaron other than Stassie's sort of boyfriend? The entire hockey team is called into a big meeting with their coach, where their coach then says, if no one fesses up to hurting Aaron, you're all going to be benched. And Nate does, I think, probably his most like team captain thing he does the entire book. He says that he did it, even though he knows that he didn't, even though that his teammates know he doesn't, because he wanted his hockey team to be able to continue to play and not be disqualified for season. The coach then said, okay, your punishment is you can't skate until Aaron is cleared to figure skate. Stassie is obviously really, really mad at Nate for punching, hurting, doing whatever, breaking Aaron's arm. She then turns to Ryan. Well, then Nate is so sick and upset about this, so he goes over to see Stassie, and then he throws up everywhere because of his migraine, and then he passes out. And it doesn't help that Ryan's also there with Stassie holding her in bed, not in a sexual way, but it doesn't help. After that point, Nate then tries to gain Stassie's trust back and is like, hey, I can't skate until Aaron can, so that's kind of perfect for you because I can help you figure skate. Act 2 is really, really fun because you get to see Nate and Stassie build up a relationship beyond the physical, and they work together as a team really, really nicely. I would argue that Act 2 has some of the best chapters of the book, and don't worry, I will tell you which ones are the best. I really enjoyed chapter 20. Okay, I liked chapter 20. I liked that it was juicy. I liked that it was a little meaty. Okay, and it was all around an interesting and entertaining chapter. 23, where Stassie is trying to deal with the consequences of Aaron and Nate, and she's not coping very well, so she goes to a bar and drinks. And that's when we get to learn a little bit about Russ, who is the main male character of Wildfires, which is the second Hannah Grace book in this series. Russ comes to Stassie's rescue in this chapter, and we get to learn a little bit more about him, which is really nice because you don't hear a whole lot about him in the book, and then he gets his own book, and you learn more about him, obviously, in his own book. But I really enjoyed chapter 23 because Stassie's kind of opening up to someone other than Nate, which was nice for a change. My next chapter is 25. I said that chapter 25 was really fun. This is when Nate and Stassie really become figure skating partners. Another chapter that I thought was good for Stassie and Nate teamwork-wise was chapter 27. I literally have written at the top teamwork because I thought it was so cute, seeing them like work through the routine together and seeing Nate help Stassie through different steps and moves in their routine. Also, in this chapter, my roommates and I were reading this book together, and I thought it was really funny, and I was laughing so hard that I literally bit the top of this book because I thought it was funny. The next chapter that I have is chapter 31. I said because it's high tension, you kind of think you know where it's going, and then it goes in a completely opposite direction, and it goes literally crazy and insane and wild. I have this little section boxed off, which I will read to you now. It reads, every so often he looks down and kisses me on the forehead, checking that I'm comfortable enough and that I'm warm enough. And then he wraps a blanket around me tighter and makes sure none of me is exposed. Then, on the very next page, it gets very not cute. And everyone gets in like this ruckus sort of state of mind, and people are like fighting and screaming, and punches are being thrown, and Anastasia is woken up really rudely, only to find that people are like basically beating up Aaron at this party. How'd that happen? I don't care. Beat Aaron up. I don't care. Anyway, but we later realize that it's JJ and Henry and Nathan, sort of. But Aaron is the main guy who's instigating this entire scenario that is occurring in this chapter. I thought the chapter was really, really interesting. It kept me on edge, and I was kind of like, oh my god, I need to read the next chapter right now. Know what happens. So I thought that was really good. Act 3 for me is chapter 33 until 50, which is the end of the book. I titled this act Christmas and Truth Revealed because I feel like those are the two big chunks that like make act 3 and kind of tie the entire book together. So first, let's talk about the Christmas chapters. Chapter 33 is kind of the end of act 2, but also the beginning of act 3. So I didn't really know where to put it, so I put it in both. But it kind of starts with Nate and Anastasia. They have just woken up together. Nate brings in Henry, and Henry kind of explains what the whole issue at the party was with Aaron. I heard him say your parents are broke, so you're latching on to a guy who's going pro. He called you a slut and said you've always been one, and you're trying to do the same thing with Nate. He said you would try and trap Nate with a baby. You didn't have the talent to go all the way in skating, and it'd give you an excuse without having to admit that you're not good enough. Continuing on, he also accused Henry of also being with Stassie because he was so defensive of her because he did call her a slut. So that's insane and crazy. And wow. And on the next page, I said murder is the only reasonable thing because I literally hate Aaron. After that point, we really see Nate and Stassie get closer because Stassie does have that lingering over her head that she's like, no, I really want to prove myself that I'm not just with you because you're like an object to me. Nate and Stassie have an exchange that goes, you make me feel cared for, feel listened to, and the other stuff I don't even know how to put into words properly. You make me feel valued for who I am as me and not who I am as a team captain or whatever. And Anastasia says, I do value you. Chapter 34 is Nathan's perspective, where they are on their way to Nathan's house for Christmas. Well, they make a pit stop at Anastasia's house first. It's only for like a day or two, but then they go to Nate's house for the rest of the holidays. Over the Christmas chapters, it kind of signifies a closure, not like closure like it's ending. It signifies a closure as in a reassurance that Stassie and Nate are closer than ever, and their impact on each other has changed the course of their lives. Stassie goes on a dangerous skating venture and she almost drowns. And I think that near-death experience also reaffirmed Nate and Stassie's relationship, that like they'll always be there for one another to protect and to help and to love and care and support for. These are also the chapters when we meet one another's family. Stassie takes Nate to meet her parents, and her parents kind of show this, like they're really proud of Stassie and the progress she's made. Nate and his dad really butt heads, and he doesn't get along with him at all, and the same thing happens to Stassie and Nate's dad. They get into it at dinner, and then Nate gets into it with his dad the next day, and I think it's really interesting to see the different family dynamics and how Stassie's family was so willing to change to help her, and Nate's dad is definitely not. What I mean by the truth. What do I mean by the truth? Well, I mean the truth. Probably the biggest shock factor plot twist in the entire book. And the truth is that Aaron was playing drunk football with another like group of friends from another college, and that's how he broke his arm. And he was very aware of that, and then went on to blame the hockey team just to like, I guess, get back at them for using their ice skating rink or something. I don't even know. Nate is greeting the other team. He's catching up with people, and the other team's captain is like, oh my god, like that's so crazy that you couldn't skate. That's so weird because, you know, Aaron broke his arm playing football. Nate drives all the way back to wherever he's going. I can't remember. Figure skating thing. And he sees their skating routine ends with Aaron pulling Stassie in for a shocking surprise ending kiss. I honestly thought the entire book that Aaron was gay. They then go off the ice. Stassie's having a breakdown because she's like, oh my god, Nate is going to hear about this. Well, good thing Nate is there because then he comes storming backstage and he threatens to literally murder Aaron. Best part of the whole book. Then Stassie goes on to be like, I'm never skating with you again. As a matter of fact, I will compete to be in the Olympics as a soloist. And that's the biggest thing Stassie does for herself this entire time. I felt like that was a great conclusion. Nate and Stassie are on healthier terms. My first favorite chapter in Act 3 is chapter 37. This is an Anastasia POV. I have the overwhelming urge to tell him I love him every time he looks at me, and I don't know how to make it stop. You really get to see a softer side of both Nate and Anastasia and seeing how much they care for one another. The next chapter I really enjoyed is chapter 44, which is a Nathan chapter. You get to see Nathan at a hockey game and Stassie supporting him, and I think it's really funny. Another thing that was really cute was in this chapter, Stassie goes to watch his game and she wears his Hawkins hockey jersey. He said that it was really weird there was someone in the crowd cheering just for him and not for the team because he's never had that kind of support before. Stassie said, I'm so proud of you. I want to drop out and be a hockey wife. My heart didn't stop pounding for 1 second, and when that guy bashed into Bobby, it was like I was possessed. I was shouting so loudly and I didn't understand what was going on most of the time, but you won. So, chapter 48. Boy, did I think chapter 47 was good, but 48 was literally so juicy. Nate and Stassie wake up and they have to go their separate ways to go to Stassie's figure skating tournament and then Nate's hockey game. Well, it's also revealed the whole errand thing. Then all hell breaks loose. Nate goes to the figure skating tournament. And the next chapter is Stassie's POV, and she is freaking out. And I think it's incredible and juicy. And the last chapters of this book really keep you on the edge of your seat. Honorable mention is chapter 50. It was really good resolution. It felt like the end of the book, but it didn't feel like the end of Stassie and Nate's story. Let's talk about the epilogue. Yes, there is a pregnancy trope. I was pretty much expecting it this entire book. I felt it coming. I don't know if you guys felt it coming. But it does end with Stassie is an Olympic gold medalist and Nate is a Stanley Cup winner. Me too! Kidding. I'm not that stupid, guys. I know what a Stanley Cup is. They got to where they both wanted to be in their careers and, they're successful adults. Stassie is a powerful woman who does what she needs to do, who is an amazing skater, and she is still a mom. There's no, I have to choose my family over my career, because that is a lot of plot points in books, movies, TV shows for women, and it's very limiting, and I think this was very nice, and it tied it together very nicely. The romance. I know a lot of you, if you've read Icebreaker, you read it because it was on TikTok. I'm not going to go into too much detail, or any detail at all. Whether that is something you are into or not, these are chapters you should be aware of when reading the book. I have chapter 8 and 9 marked. I think they kind of fade into one another because it's a dual perspective, so you get one person's perspective and then another. Chapter 12, then 15 and 16 tie in together, then chapter 19, chapter 29, then 32, 36, 40, and then all the way to 47. If you're watching this video and you work at Target, please take this book out of the children's section. Let's finally talk about reviews. When I first heard about Icebreaker, I never really heard a negative thing about it until I looked up on Goodreads Icebreaker reviews after reading it. Needless to say, people take things way too seriously. It is a college romance hockey book. With that being said, I went on Goodreads. Icebreaker has a community rating of 3.95 stars. There are over 600,000 ratings on Goodreads, and 75,000 of those are also with reviews. This first one is by Abigail, who left a 2-star review. Oh God, give me a time machine. All these characters have going for them is the fact that they can fuck. I thought that was really funny. So next is a 5-star review left by Lisa the Not Book Creep. Not me giggling like a teenager while reading this, absolutely not. Giggle. Before reading this book, I loved golden retrievers, but now I am in love with them. Next, this might be my favorite review by Amelia, who left the book a 1-star review. And to be honest, I really enjoyed this book, but reading Amelia's review was equally as entertaining. By the way, Stassie is the ugliest nickname I've ever heard in my entire life. Bitch isn't the Loch Ness monster. Second of all, the way he's immediately like, OMG, I would do anything to hear Stassie's laugh again. Hard eyes emoji. Shut the fuck up. You just met her. Please. Like, it's painful and so fucking forced too. They don't have 2 molecules of chemistry to rub together. You can tell the author was literally forcing infatuation on Nathan. He is literally a fictional character that the author wrote. Whatever she writes, that is how he's feeling. My roommate Paris then responded, "Ladies, is it a crime for a man to be in love at first sight?" That review was hilarious and very strongly opinionated, and good on Amelia for sharing her opinion on the book, because a lot of people were just like, oh, it was like a good book, like it was fine. And I thought that was a very honest reflection. That was literally just one review out of 62,000. Only 30 of those reviews were 1-star reviews, and that was just one of them that I read. And that was truly just one negative review, and only one review in general out of literally thousands you can find on the internet. Now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. My review, my humble opinion. I really enjoyed the book. I liked that it's the start of a series. I think that's really fun. I'm excited to see where the series goes. I hope that it doesn't just stop at the 3rd installation, and I hope that Hannah Grace continues to give us more content from the hockey team. The plot was really fun, getting to see these two people who pretty much had nothing in common before and weren't friends at all are really forced to be like work together as a team and this shared space, and that's really tested when like Aaron comes in and messes things up, and then they actually have to be teammates and partners. But I did like that we got a good build of Nate and Stassie's relationship before that incident. I'm also glad we got to see Anastasia and Nate grow together. I thought that was really nice, seeing like Nate help Anastasia through some things. Like, she very obviously has commitment and abandonment issues, so she was kind of pushing against the relationship, and Nate showed her that it was okay to be afraid of those things, and then it's okay to commit into a relationship regardless. I also enjoyed that there was no 3rd act breakup. In the 3rd act, when Stassie and Nate reached a conflict where one author may write a breakup trope, I liked that Hannah Grace proved that Stassie and Nate had grown together throughout this book, and that they were mature enough to work through their issues. I so enjoyed that. Gold star. I think that I want to close this video out by saying that if you're looking for a good romance book, if you really enjoy sports romance in specific, that Icebreaker is probably a good selection. Please do keep in mind those triggers that I mentioned at the beginning. There's a lot of content warnings that I think... Please do keep in mind those content warnings that I shared at the beginning if you're not interested in any of those, or something of the sort. If that's a heavy topic for you, do read this with caution. If you made it through this entire video, I did not even get into the worst of it, so keep that in mind when you're reading. I think that Hannah Grace did do a wonderful job with Icebreaker. I think she's a good author. I think she's going great places. I think her series is going great places. I'm currently in the midst of reading Wildfires, which is the 2nd installation of that book. Hopefully, if this video does well, I'll also do another review on Wildfires and make this a book club series. That would be so much fun. I would love to do a book club series. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Icebreaker and in-depth talking. See you next video. Bye! These are too fartsy. What? With Robert? Well, that's insane. And I have no idea what's gonna happen. Literally, bit. Shut the fuck up. Super distanced. We hate one another. It's a long one, so strap in, guys.